as an aspiring presenter myself, I am super excited to have Robyn here with us today. So Robyn, if you'd like to go and introduce yourself to begin with.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Robyn Richford. I'm a TV and radio presenter. I'm obviously originally from Glasgow, but I live down in London now. Yeah, I know, the accent gives me away. You can hear me before you can see me.
I love it.
So yeah, I've been working in the industry for maybe like 4 years now.
Amazing.
Maybe 5 actually. It goes quick.
Yeah, I know, we lose track of time, especially with the C word. With the pandemic, it's like, what year is it? Nobody knows. So I know I submitted some questions to you beforehand, but we're just going to have a really chilled, lovely conversation. We've had some technical issues as it's my first time recording, but we made it. We are committed to the cause. So Robyn, let's start with the beginning of your life, I suppose. Like growing up in Glasgow, did you always want to be a presenter?
Do you know what? It's really funny because apparently my mum tells me now that like when I was really, really little, I used to be like, I want to be a journalist, like because I wanted to kind of like go out and report and do all of that sort of thing. But then I kind of never, well, my mum I think put me off it because she was terrified of it, like, you know, me going to like war zones or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was when I was really, really little, and then I don't even remember that, but it's obviously only now that it's kind of came up. So yeah, when I was really little, I think I was quite intuitive as a kid, and I feel like I kind of just followed like what felt good. I wasn't always like, you know, I want to be well, for starters, I didn't even know what a presenter was. I didn't even know it was a job. I kind of knew that I wanted to be an entertainer though.
Yeah.
And I would, you know, see people, you know, whether they're
entertainer. You're very entertaining, so that works.
That's it. And I don't know, I think I saw people on like TV and I saw the magazines and I saw all of that and I kind of thought, oh, that's a world that really interests me.
Yeah.
But I didn't really know how to get into it or kind of where that would start, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been quite a journey, and especially like my mum and dad, they weren't very academic when they were young, and so they really pushed me in the academic. So I am quite academic and, you know, love physics and yeah, some stuff that I guess you probably wouldn't think that I would. So yeah, I kind of went down that route and then kind of switched it all up.
Oh my gosh, I have to ask you this question. It's just popped into my head. It's like a spontaneous one, but yeah, what are things that people don't know about you from social media? Because obviously you're very active on Instagram. Obviously we were going to say that part at the end, but you need to follow Robyn Richford on Robyn with a Y, not with an I, on Instagram, because I love your stories. You're hilarious. But you share a lot and you're very vulnerable. And as you know, this is like a vulnerable podcast, but like, what are things that people don't know about you that you'd love for people to know?
Yeah.
Maybe things that like, even, I mean, I might push you a little bit here, but even things that you're maybe a little bit afraid to talk about, or, you know, there's a lot of fear of judgment on social media, but I'm just wanting to dig deep here.
Yeah, of course. I mean, dig deep. I mean, that's probably actually one thing people don't maybe know about me from socials, is that I'm actually quite a deep person.
I love it.
I kind of leave kind of, you know, the kind of really deep stuff out of my socials. I know why people are on there. They're on there to feel a little bit better, but also I like to think a little realistic. I try and like show that, you know, life isn't perfect and things like that, but I'm not very deep on there at all. And my friends will tell you like I am actually quite deep. So that might be something, I guess, that people wouldn't necessarily think of me.
Yeah.
As I also love mainstream dance music, which people don't necessarily know. I obviously did some stuff on Radio 1 and
yes,
I did like...
you did like 2017 dance anthems or something like that, which... Yeah, I'm like, I can't even remember what songs were out that year, but like, I'm sure it was a great year for music. It
was a brilliant year for music. Yeah, and then on the New Year's Eve, I got to do the dance anthems, which I really loved because I felt as if that was like showing a part of me that I kind of hadn't really shown before. And I think, yeah, the physics is definitely one that people don't know. I've got such a maths brain.
I love it.
I love physics. My brother's a scientist, so he really actually...
Is he? What, like in the labs? Like what kind of scientist?
So he does renewable energy.
Oh, wow.
And he works
very
like,
busy the past few years, I imagine.
Absolutely.
Doing that sort of thing, very in demand.
That's it. It's a good area. It's a good area.
Yeah.
But he actually went down that route, but we have very similar, brains, and I think maths and kind of physics and stuff like that people maybe not really know about
not
me.
really know about you. Oh my gosh, I feel like this is why, for context for everyone, obviously I've just started this podcast, but this is why I started it, to interview people who are kind of in the spotlight, doing things on TV or radio or acting, and just to find out things that, because people can look at your Instagram and find out a fair amount about you, but like you just said, people wouldn't know that you're a maths geek or whatever, or like into physics, or that you're quite deep. And I love this podcast. Is obviously quite we go into depth, because I'm a super deep person as a coach. I go really deep with my clients. So yeah, I guess I just want to like quiz you on that. Like, what's kind of holding you back from showing that? Like, do you feel like you're ready to show the whole Robyn? I mean, I get the part of, your social media is like an outlet for kind of, for, what do you call it, like escapism.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want it to be too like, down in the dumps, but like, somebody I really admire is like Fern Cotton, for like her authenticity and her vulnerability. So yeah, do you feel like you're ready to show more of Robyn? I mean, I love all of you. I'm here for it.
I love that. I feel like I am ready to show it, but maybe not. I think it needs to be the right vehicle, because I think I'm very aware of like what my role is in the space of entertainment, and I kind of know that what people want to see from me, and it is that escapism, and also like I'm not quite there yet.
Of course, yeah.
But I do think like stuff like podcasts. That's why I like to do things like this, because I feel like it gives me an opportunity to kind of show a slightly different version of myself.
Yes.
And I was actually having a meeting with someone in the industry a couple of weeks ago now, and it was really interesting because she actually asked me the same question,
wow.
Like, what's
on
that?
The same wavelength.
That's it. Yeah, she was kind of like...
I feel like the universe is pushing you right now. You're like, lots of signs.
It's true. And she was kind of like, what's that one piece, like that you've kind of not had a chance to showcase yet? And it was really interesting. But I do think that, a vehicle like a podcast would be a good kind of platform for me to kind of like dive deep.
Watch this space, everyone, for Robyns Podcast. You know what? I think that it just fits so well with the industry that you're in. And I think like, I mean, I look up to you, like I said, as an aspiring presenter. And I think that so many, we'll talk about the presenting that you do and that you've done and maybe that you're going to do. But I know you do a lot with kids, like you do Scrambled on ITV. And I imagine, kids watch Scrambled and they think, you're a role model, right? So first question, do you find kind of pressure with that? Because I guess kids is almost more pressured in a way than adults. And then also like, why do you love doing the kids stuff? And then we'll move into like music and other things after that.
Of course. I think that role model is quite a difficult one, I find, because I don't look at myself as a role model, but I do understand that with the platform that I have, like you say, there will be kids that, look up to you, or they think of you as a big sister. That's basically the kind of
I love
kids stuff that I do, because I don't really do like the kind of singing, or I mean, no one wants to hear me sing. No one wants to hear me sing. I'm so bad. But I don't do the singing or clapping your hands or any of that sort of
You're
stuff.
not like what was his name on CBB?
Mr. Maker, no.
Not Mr. I'm thinking Mr. Tumble.
Oh, yeah.
Is it Mr. Tumble?
Yeah, there is a Mr. Tumble. Yeah, I'm not that. So I do think that I've kind of ended up in that space, but it wasn't something I kind of like set out to in terms of like a role model, just because I think with that comes so much responsibility, and it's tricky, right? Like, I'm a woman, like I'm not like a young girl anymore, and I think that that's tricky because, you know, I've got to watch, you know, what goes out there because I do the kids stuff. But equally, I do have this kind of battle a little bit where you're like, yeah, but I am a grown woman, so like I'm allowed to drink wine.
Yeah,
that's allowed.
Actually, that's a good point. Yeah, on your socials, do you ever think like, do you ever kind of feel, like I say, that pressure and that responsibility of like, should I post this? Shouldn't I post this? I want to be authentic, but at the same time I want to be appropriate, like kind of toying that line.
Yeah, it is a line, and my general kind of like rule of thumb is it okay for my dad to see it? And if the answer is yes, then I kind of go with it.
Good to go.
Though my dad is a bit of a rebel, but yeah,
I love that. I love that.
That's kind of my like gauging point at the minute. Whether you get, you know, I'm human, right? I'm not going to get it right every time, but as a general rule, that's kind of where my brain goes.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And for people listening or watching on YouTube, hey everyone on YouTube, what if they're wanting to get into presenting? Like how, you know, you hear like it's very competitive, perhaps like, you know, young people might be watching this and their parents are like, oh, you know, you've got to be like famous or go on Love Island or something like that. Like what is your advice for people, or maybe not even presenting specifically, but entertainment, show business, those kind of industries?
It's tricky, and I think that the what would I say? The kind of like platforms have changed everything, right? So you can become a presenter or get into this industry through YouTube. It's accessible to everyone now, or, you know, Instagram, or, you know, whereas before it wasn't that. So
it's become a lot easier in a way.
Yeah, but again, with that, it comes a lot more competition.
Double-edged sword. Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword, but there's also a lot more opportunities, which is amazing. That like, you know, years ago you'd have 5 channels, right? If you weren't on the 5 channels, then that was it. You weren't doing it. So I think that it's amazing because it's opened this whole world up to us. But I would kind of say, like, starting out, I would say you have to just do it. I think,
go for it.
Yeah, I honestly think there's so much to be said for just doing it. Like the amount of people that will be in my DMs and say, you know, I want to be a presenter or whatever, and then I'll click on their socials, and I'm like, you don't have one video, you don't talk on your stories, you don't, and so in a case of just starting out, I would say get used to talking on camera because it's different.
Oh, it's so different. Like even doing this, like we're in a WeWork. Thanks, shout out to WeWork. They're not sponsoring or anything, but who knows? Maybe in the future. But yeah, like we're just doing this in a WeWork. Like we're doing it. Like we had technical issues, but you know, I was having a bath this morning to relax, and I was like, I was nervous because I was like, oh my gosh, I feel a lot of pressure, and then I was like, wait, this is me, like this is my thing. Why am I putting pressure on it? But even, you know, starting a YouTube channel or a podcast can feel very daunting and overwhelming. And reaching out to you, reaching out to like other high profile people, I just thought, you know, are they going to get back to me? Imposter syndrome? Are they going to think like, who does she think she is? But honestly, everyone has been so lovely and been like, I would love to. People have even said, anything to help you in your career. And it like makes me tear up now because these are people that I've never met before. I've just connected with on Instagram. And I'm like, they want to help me with my career. So also, I know I'm like interrupting there, but don't ever, like whoever's watching and listening, don't ever underestimate the generosity of people. You know, there are some nasty people out there, but there are, I believe, from what I've seen, a lot more nice, kind, generous people.
And I think with that, it goes like you were saying about advice. It's like, have you heard the saying where it's like, if you've got a broken down car, if you just sit in the car, no one's going to stop. If you get out and try and push, then 90% higher success rate that someone's going to come out the car and help you push, because it's just human nature. You see someone and you're like, let me
help. To make it.
Yeah, but if you're sitting in the car and you're broken down, I mean, I don't know, say 90% of the drivers going by might not even know you're broken down.
Yeah.
So I do think that
true.
When you kind of start that momentum, a lot of people are willing to kind of help and come on, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, and help you out. Yeah, 100%. Like I said, I didn't expect it. So like this is from like learning this lesson, sharing this to the listeners and the viewers, like honestly, just like you've just said, put yourself out there. You never know who's going to come and help you push your car, like the analogy, or even, you know, people, 6 degrees of separation, I fully believe in that. Like, there's been people I've wanted to interview on this podcast, connected with someone, and then the next day on their Instagram stories, they're hanging out with somebody that I want to interview. Like, this girl I know, went out for lunch with Laura Jackson the other day, and I'm like, what on earth? Like, this is crazy. So the moral of the story, I guess, is like, put yourself out there, and like you said, if you're gonna ask for advice, then at least be like doing something to begin with. Like, put yourself out there. So obviously you're doing ITV Scrambled at the moment. You've done BBC Radio 1 covers, which is amazing. What else have you done? What are you doing? Maybe what are you going to be doing, if you can share that with us? And what's been like the job that's most excited you yet?
Ooh.
If you're allowed to say that.
Yeah.
Don't get me in trouble.
Do you know what? It's really tricky because, so when I got Scrambled, I had never had a network gig before. So for me, that was just crying my eyes out and like FaceTiming my mum and dad. They were on holiday and they actually had to pull over because they were driving, and they panicked because I was just bawling and they couldn't.
They were like, "What's wrong with
Yeah, what's happening?" And I just remember I kept repeating like, "I've done it, I've done it, I've done it, I've actually done it." So I think for me, Scrambled will always have like a little place in my heart. Yeah, just because it was like my first network job. It was such a big moment for me. Because I kind of always thought, hey, if I could just get in that kid's telly door, then everything else I can build upon. Naive. I was, but it is true.
But you've got to be naive to, like, when I think about the biggest things that have happened in my life, it's always started with naivety.
It's true.
It's like kids, when you see kids going like skiing or throwing themselves down a water slide, like, just no fear.
No.
We need to go back to that like childhood fearlessness and like the naivety. Sometimes comes to bite you on the bum, but it's always going to lead to something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, for me, Scrambled was that for sure. I mean, Radio 1 was another huge moment.
Moment.
Yeah, but Radio 1 came at like such a strange time because it kind of was, I just wasn't expecting it, and I wasn't kind of in that headspace. So before I knew it, I was just kind of standing there live to like millions of people. And there was a bit of a moment of like, do I know what I'm doing?
The self-doubt.
Do I know what I'm doing? Because I'm not sure.
Oh, but you did it and you smashed it, and they've invited you back. So, I mean, you couldn't have done too badly.
That's true.
But like a friend of mine from sixth form, Alice Dale, shout out to you, Alice. She was a Christmas presenter and they've invited her back. So, and the Christmas presenter thing at Radio 1, right? You just send in a recording and then they shortlist you, and like, that's it. So it's like anyone, you don't need to be have experience already. I think we put, particularly as women, like if we're going to go deep here, I think we put so many blocks in the way before we've even started. So we're like, what about this? But what if this doesn't work? But what if I'm not good enough? Or like you said, with the doubt that creeps in with Radio 1. So how do you manage and overcome that doubt and maybe even imposter syndrome when it creeps in?
I think the way I deal with it is like I actually like kind of sit in it a bit and I kind of feel it. I mean, don't get me wrong, as you kind of progress on your career, the doubts are less, of course, because you kind of can like think about past experiences that you felt the same and realize that actually, I was all right. I survived it. It was fine.
I'm still here, still breathing.
I'm still breathing. I've still got a career. We're all right, So I think that definitely as time goes on, those doubts, but it's like anything, you're just going up a level and up a level, and it's still scary, you know what I mean? Like if I still think about like presenters that have been doing it for years, like then now I am in an arena with them, you're a small fish again, and each level you go up, it's the exact same thing. And I just like to kind of reach out. I also think as well, like the more kind of, I guess, self-assurance that you give yourself in terms of the little things that you're doing will help in those bigger kind of arenas. Like if you, like I was saying earlier, even if you are just showing up on your Instagram stories, those little things, without you even realizing it, will feed into, you know, whatever it is that comes next. So I think that kind of reduces doubt, I think, because you're like, I've done it before, this is just a different level.
Amazing. I've just got to restart my technical. Still making sure that we're recording. You know, we don't want to like get to the end and be like, oh, we missed everything. So who inspires you? Who, like, it could even be like your mum maybe, or your dad, but or it could be somebody in your industry, but like, who is there, anyone that you really look up to and think like, I'd love to, you know, have the success that they've had? Or, you know, it might not even be success looks different to other people. It could be how happy they are. It might not even be the jobs they've gotten, or the fame or the money, or, you know, those material things.
Yeah, I think it actually changes weirdly. Coming into presenting, I was hugely inspired by Kat Daly. I
love her.
Love Kat Daly. I don't ever want to meet her, because, you know, they say like, don't meet your heroes.
Yeah, I know. Scared. Imagine if she was like, you know, in a mood that day because she'd had a really bad morning. You're like, she was so mean to me. And then she's like, I've just had a bad day. It's nothing personal.
It's true. But what I've heard, you know, she would be so lovely. But I was very inspired by Kat Daly, and I loved as well the stuff she did over in America. That for me is just like a whole bigger, you know, it's a whole bigger arena.
Yeah, like Hollywood.
yeah, and I thought it was amazing that she manages to have kids and still do it, and all of that sort of thing. But there's loads of people that have inspired me through the years, and it's really nice to kind of like look up to them now. And even like there are certain like presenters, for instance, that I looked at even like a few years ago that I was like, oh hey, like we're now at a level that I could ask to go for a coffee with you. That's really exciting.
That's amazing.
And it's nice that kind of happens, and you realize as well that everyone's just people.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, it's really, I find, so a friend of mine, we're both like obsessed with celebrities and celebrity culture, not like in a gossip, like we hate the tabloids obviously, but like the way that people obsess over celebrities, like we just find it fascinating, and so we're thinking of doing like a podcast or a blog around that. But yeah, we do put celebrities on such, or like people that we admire on such a pedestal, and now you've, like you've said, ended up in the same room as them, and you've realized that, you know, they are just normal people. So you know, Robyn is just a normal person as well. Because I must admit, when I first found you on Instagram, I was like, oh my God, this girl is killing it. I was like, and that's why, because initially for context for everyone, we initially met or connected because I asked you, like, do you have any tips for getting into presenting? And then we were going to have a Zoom, but then various things happened. And then I decided to start the podcast literally last week. Manifesting Generator, if anyone knows human design, we move very quickly. We take action.
I love
full
it.
of ideas. And I messaged Robyn and I was like, hey, look, I know we haven't talked for a while, but I'm starting this podcast and I would love to interview you. And you were like, yeah, sure. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And, you know, we never know where this is going to lead to. So it's very exciting.
It is.
So you've spoken about, like, you know, the highs, the success. Obviously, this podcast is about navigating the entirety of success in inverted commas. So how do you navigate, you know, I don't want to say the lows because I don't want to make this too like down in the dumps, but, you know, the challenging days, and maybe I don't know whether there's been times where you haven't got a job for a while, or maybe you've been rejected from a job, or things like that. How do you navigate through those types of things?
I mean, like a total human, to be honest. Is how I would answer that. Yeah, like, but also as well, I have really good support system, and I think that is crucial if you're coming into an industry like this. It is highs and lows. There, you know, it's not plain sailing, and even if it looks like that from the outside, it just never is. You know, you can be in
Instagram reality versus real life reality.
It's true, but you can be in 10 rooms and one come off. You know what I mean? Like one work, and so what you kind of see in the output isn't what the input is, and it's, you know, I always say, like, if you were to kind of like zoom out on my career thus far, it would be like this. But if you were to zoom in and see on a daily basis, it would be up and down and roundabout. So I think it's just bearing in mind that is how it's going to go.
Yeah. That's life, isn't it? You know, life isn't, it's, I can't remember it, there's like a famous quote and I'm going to completely butcher it. This is paraphrase, but you know, if you don't know the highs, you don't know the lows and vice versa. Like if your life was always just a flat line of happiness and all good things, then you wouldn't appreciate, as cheesy as it sounds, like it's something I've been thinking about recently, you know, you wouldn't appreciate the good things if everything was already good. Because it would just become normal. It's
true. But I do also think that like in an industry where you're freelance, any industry where you're freelance, you do have to accept that the lows are going to be lower and the highs are going to be higher. And
the risks are higher, right?
Yeah. And I think you also you have to know that is what you're signing up for. I think once you kind of make peace with that. So I feel like I'm now at a place where it's like, well, I don't have a plan B. So I almost...
This is the only option.
This is the only option. But sometimes I think that if you have a plan B, my advice would be go and do the plan B. Because if you have it sitting there, you'll only end up there anyway. Because it's there. So
true.
I always think, that's just my personality type though, but I do also think that anytime I've kind of, you know, toyed with the idea of a plan B, I've ended up there for a couple of months because it's been there. And I think once you take that away, you have to make it work.
Yeah.
And that's the way that I would say, you have to feel it a lot more though, but that's how I navigate the lows. And like I say, I've got an amazing support system. My parents are incredible. My parents are so spontaneous.
I love it. Oh my gosh, Are you into star signs and like astrology and stuff?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. To be fair, I don't know loads, but like I'm a Gemini. I don't know what you are, but like Geminis are all about, they're an air sign. So air signs and water signs are like all over the place, like free spirits, fly by, what is it? Fly by the seat of their pants or whatever the expression is. But I imagine you're probably an air or water sign. I could be wrong.
I? I'm a Leo. What's that?
Ooh,
Leo the lion. I've got to inspire, you know.
Yeah. That one makes sense. I mean, you're not an earth sign. So earth signs are very grounded and like think things through and like more rational. No. So yeah, I'm like, you're definitely not earth sign, sorry. No earth signs in this room. But yeah, so basically in short, you just, like you said about the doubt, you allow yourself to feel it and you've accepted the fact that there are going to be lows as a freelancer. And how, I know you said you started started presenting like 4 years ago. So were you freelancing, have you only ever freelanced or?
Yeah, so I was a professional dancer before I was a presenter. And when I was at college, I studied down here, and when I was at college and I was it was in the summer of my first year, I got injured really quite bad. I was doing like a fringe show or whatever.
Yeah.
I was doing a fringe show. I was dancing in it, and I got injured, and it was actually my mom who said to me, you know, throwing it out there, what are you going to do if you get injured and you can never dance again? And I was like, yeah, good point. I have no idea.
Yeah.
So she'd actually...
You didn't have a plan B then either.
No, I didn't have a plan B then either. And it was really funny because I came down to London knowing that I wanted to be an entertainer and knowing that dance was like my ticket out of my little town, but I didn't...
That was another question I was going to ask you. When did you move to London and how did that happen? But so yeah, there we go.
That's how that happened. It was like dance was my ticket out. I just always kind of knew that like I grew up in such a nice little town. It was just outside Glasgow. It's in the country. And I loved it. I had an amazing childhood, but I was always itchy feet. I always wanted out.
Yeah.
I have no idea why, because it's such a nice place.
I know, but it's like small town girl syndrome almost, isn't it? It's like, I want to see like the big, it's just such a cliche, isn't it? Like see the big city and the big lights. And I'm the same. Like, to be fair, if I'm in the city for too long, I need to get out in the country. And if I'm in the country for too long, I need to get in the city. So it's kind of like, it's also nice to have a balance. And I know you live in quite like a leafy suburban area. So like,
yeah, I do now.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah. Yeah, not always. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Trust me, when you're a student and you've got no money, you can't afford to live in the leafy suburb of London. You just can't.
Let's make this realistic. But you can still dream. You can still dream.
That's it. At the beginning, that was not the case at all. But yeah, I just, I remember being like, oh, dance is my way. I knew that, you know, that was what was going to get me down here. And I knew that then I could just figure it out. So even though I was at dance college and training to be a dancer, I kind of always knew that I didn't have the same ambitions as maybe like my peers.
Yeah.
I didn't dream of being on the West End. I didn't dream of, like, some of my peers would be like, oh my gosh, I would love to dance behind, you know, X, Y, or Z. And I was like, yeah, sounds cool, but not for me. You know, like, I don't know.
Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not. But I was still committed to it, and I was there, and I knew that I wanted to be the best that I could be when, you know, once I was there. But my mum kind of was like, what about kind of presenting? I'll buy you this course. And
oh, wow. It's amazing that she was the one that, like, initiated it almost by saying, like, what about presenting? And then, like,
she's a white witch. She's a white witch.
I'm obsessed. Oh, my gosh. That's, that is, like, a rare story of, like, the parent being like, do something creative and fun. They're like, no, doctor, lawyer.
No, she did do that first.
Oh yeah,
she did do that first.
She quickly learned.
Yeah, but I think she was just like, so before I actually went to dance college, I was actually going to university to do like a business enterprise with like physics, because my dad at the time had like an electronic engineering company, and I thought if I go and study that, then I'll be able to take over the company and all of this sort of thing. And then I completely switched it off and went dancing. But I think
slightly different.
Yeah, it didn't go down too well. Went down like a lead balloon at first.
I can imagine.
I want to be a dancer, and they were like, "So you want to have no money for the rest of your life?"
Okay, good to know. We'll be supporting you. At least we know from the get-go.
Exactly.
No more Christmas presents for you. Put it towards that.
Yeah, but ever since the decision was made, like, my parents are really good like that in terms of, like, I've always had quite a strong intuition and kind of followed my gut anyway, and they've always encouraged that. But it's really funny, sometimes they'd encourage it and then they would get scared of the decisions that I would make. But I think
doubt soon creep. I find that though, it's like, I think I saw a graph once that was like excitement, doubt, excitement, doubt, excitement, doubt, because it's like the excitement, and then you sort of run through that wave or like swim through that wave, and then you're like, and then the doubt kicks in, and then you get over the doubt, and then you're in the excitement, and then the doubt kicks in again, and that's just life, I think. Yeah,
it is. And I also think as well, it's just like there's so many factors that like influence it, and I've really realized that in the last year of my career, that like my health wasn't great last year, and that was the first time I'd ever had that, and and I was like, oh, that, you know, that has impacted my career so much in a way that I kind of thought, how I mean, doesn't make any sense that I thought that it wouldn't influence my career. But, you know, like, I genuinely was like, they're two separate entities, but they just absolutely aren't. And I think I've learned now that circumstance has so much to do with everything.
100%.
And so that's why having that kind of support system and people around you that believe in you, when you have those days that you don't believe in yourself and it's going to happen, you need them.
100%. And like, what is a day in the life with, you know, I know you've had a really busy week this week, but probably like not all weeks, like you said, peaks and troughs, but like, what is the average day in the life for Robyn? Because I know we're curious naturally as humans, so I know like people always want to know, like, the person they, you know, look up to that's doing something they want to do, they want to know, like, what does she do every day?
Yeah, it's really funny you ask this, because I always, and I mean always, get this in my DMs, to the point where now I've started doing like a little today schedule, like, and I just post it on my stories.
I used to do that, and then I noticed that you were doing that, and I was like, I should start doing that again. But yeah, I can imagine people are like super curious.
Yeah, people are like, what do you do all day? I'm like, good question. So it literally varies, which is really annoying, and I totally get that.
But also, that's really fun for you though, right? Like,
yeah,
do you thrive? I imagine you thrive off that variety. Like, I'm the same. I couldn't. Hence why I'm not in a 9 to 5. Like, I could not do the same thing every day. No. Go insane.
I also think as well the variety is like great, but I do also think you need to have self-discipline and to know that if your diary is technically empty, it's not empty. You know, like that day has to be, you know, whatever development you need to do for a project you're doing, that day has to be, let me send a demo to this person. That day has to be, can I add something to my show reel? You know, who can I email today? And I think that is such a big part of where I'm at the minute. Obviously, I've got my management who do, they're like my fairy godmothers. I like adore them, and they do, the big picture, and they're doing all of that for me. But I'm just
still other things.
I like to just do it anyway. But I don't know. I mean,
you're a bit of a control freak.
I don't know. It's really hard. Like when you've done it all yourself, and then you get to a point where
like,
it's true, and you kind of build it all up, and then you get to a level where you have a management, and they're like, okay, we can take this off you so that you can focus, and you're like, amazing, but I'm just gonna email them just in case.
And they're like, we could do it for you, like, you are paying us for that, and you're like, no, it's fine. They're like, okay.
It's true. In fact, my management messaged me a few weeks ago like, oh, hey, such and such just said that you reached out. I've already spoken to her.
I mean, that must be the awkward thing as well, because you could both be reaching out to the same. I honestly, it took me a long time to because my dad, if he's watching or listening to this, love you, Dad. But my dad's a bit of a control freak, and I get that from him. So I just found that I was trying to manipulate and control situations. And I was like, I've honestly in the past few years become so laid back. This technical glitch that was happening earlier, getting the mics to sync and whatever, I would have before I probably would have held it together for you, but I would have been on the verge of a meltdown. But I was actually pretty relaxed, and I thought looking back now, I'm like, I've come quite a long way. So my coach coming out now, I would just say it will 100% benefit you, and you will grow personally and professionally if you just let go just a little bit.
I know.
Just a little bit.
Well, that's it.
I challenge you on that one.
I like it. I like a challenge. Now, I think do you know what's really funny? In my personal life, I don't care. I'm so
that's
I really don't care.
Yeah.
But with my work, I think I'd like to be proactive, and I'm always like, what can I kind of be doing? And so that's what I find a little bit trickier. Yeah. But in my personal life, for instance, some of my friends are really we said we were going to do this and we're not doing that. I'm like, whatever. I don't care.
It's fine. Yeah.
I don't care.
Because you strike me as quite a laid back person. I felt awful about keeping you here trying to sort out this bloody technical stuff. And then you were just so chilled about it. So when you say that, sometimes you like to do things yourself, like I say, I just challenge you to just let go of the grip just a little. But I understand that when you freelance, I've been freelancing for 3 years now, it's your business, because it's your business, right? Really, it's kind of personal brand, business, whatever you want to call it. It's yours, it's your baby, and so it can be hard to kind of loosen those ties and just delegate things. But in terms of your management, when did that happen and how did that happen? I mean, I'm sure people might be watching who are should I get an agent?
The age-old question. Should I get an agent? So I had an agent before, who was great, and we had such a really nice relationship, which is what I would say is absolutely key. If you're going to go down the agent route, if you're going to go down the management route, you need to have I personally think you need to have a relationship that you can pick up the phone and just ring them. Yeah. And if you don't have that, then I personally don't think it's the right one. But I know everyone's different, but for me, I'd be I don't ring them every day because they're really busy and I wouldn't do that. But I just mean especially as you start to grow. And also I feel like it's really important that you have someone that you can be is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? And not someone that you only speak to via email if they send you a job like an addition, you know?
Yeah.
So I think
That personal relationship.
Yeah, but I also think as well, when you're kind of starting out, you need to know who you are as a presenter. You need to know where you want to go. You need to know where you fit before you even start approaching management or agents.
Yeah.
That would be my advice.
They're going to ask you questions, right? And you might just be sat there like...
Yeah, but not even that. You could go and like sell yourself amazingly, which presenters can do. Yeah, but when you're in that relationship, you can end up down a road that actually isn't the right fit for you because you didn't know where you wanted to go, so you can go with the wind a bit more. And I think that that's kind of something to bear in mind, that if you don't have a clear vision for yourself, just know that like you know, someone else's vision might be where you end up if you go with an agent earlier than maybe you should.
Yeah, too early. Yeah, and I think, you know, it's very, and I think our generation are amazing because we're so ambitious and like we do fly by the seat of our pants, whatever the expression is. But sometimes, you know, it's easy with being that way inclined to jump into things without really thinking it through. And I know I've done that a few times, like with certain projects or with certain clients, you know, in the moment you're sort of, I'm really into human design, which I won't go into detail because it's like really deep, but I'm really into how the like brain works, and you can be like an emotional authority, which means that you go through emotional waves, and I'm an emotional authority, so I have to make sure I don't make decisions from an emotional high or from an emotional low. Ooh. I have to like wait.
I don't even know what this is, but
I know it's fascinating. Like, don't Google it. I'll tell you about it. I'll give you a little session to like. I'll give you like a reading and stuff, because if you Google it, you'll just get lost because it's so extensive. Like it's it's like a whole new world of just like information. But so, you know, my coach said to me, she was like, do not make decisions when you're feeling super excited or like super miserable, because it will not be the right decision for you. Like, you have to wait until you're at an emotionally neutral, grounded place, which is hard for me as a Gemini, like, woo, and then make the decision. Okay. Because, and this is like tying back with what you were saying about deciding on an agent, like allow yourself that time and space to think it through and to brainstorm and to, I think it's like, as cliche as this sounds, it's about getting to know who you really are as well, rather than just like, I just want to be a presenter, but like, why do you want to be a presenter? And like, what kind of presenter? What are your values? What are your personality? What do you want to express? What do you want to showcase? Like, a lot of people probably don't even think about that. They're just like, I just want the fame and the you know, to be on TV.
Yeah, it's true. It's so true. And I think as well, it's such a big industry, especially now with podcasting. And
yeah, it's huge. Yeah, getting bigger.
It's getting bigger and bigger. And I think you can literally be like a specialist in like drunk true crime now. Like, it's so niche. Like, there's certain things that you can just do that just were never available before. So I think that, yeah, you're right. You need to know where your voice sits. You need to know what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's key. I mean, don't get me wrong, everyone does. Definitely some people, sometimes an opportunity presents itself that you didn't think you were necessarily great for, but it presents itself and you go for it anyway.
Yeah.
But I think knowing the general direction is really important in anything that you're doing.
In anything. No, it's, yeah, even if you're watching this and you're like, I'd want to be a presenter, like anything that you aspire to do, I would just say, think it through, because the one thing that I would say is, you know, we put things on such a pedestal, like we were saying earlier about people, and then you might get into the job and be like, actually, this isn't what I really wanted. And you might have, you know, I've heard stories of people that have moved country even, and then they get there and they're like, this isn't, and it's because, like you said, you've got to be so committed to it that you are prepared for not just the highs, because the highs will feel amazing, but also to navigate through the lows as well. And what I've realized through my work is, like, when you truly love what you do and you're so passionate about it, it doesn't matter if, you know, it puts things that we make super big in our head super small in reality. So, like, you know, getting rejected from a job or from a client, or you know, somebody being annoyed at you about something. It just makes those things super small because you know that you're working towards something that's so much bigger.
Yeah, it's true. And I also think as well that, like, when you know it's the right decision with your gut, then it actually doesn't matter if you're happy or sad in that moment. I remember when I first moved to London, spending, like, I'm not even exaggerating, like, pretty much every night crying myself to sleep for like 6 months, but still knowing it was the right place to be.
Yeah.
But just knowing that,
that's
like,
powerful.
I was like, I can't go back.
Yeah.
You know, like, and so I think that I kind of knew that, but I just also, I knew I was in the right place, and I think that that's kind of important. Like, whatever you're, you know, doing, or like you say, if you move to a new country or whatever, like, you'll know deep down if it's just that you need some time to get used to it. I was lonely, you know, like,
yeah, of course.
But I think if you know the direction that you're going and you know why you're doing it, then I think you can deal with the highs and lows.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to overcome them. Yeah, 100%. So what is your, like, vision? I don't know if you have a vision, or whether you're into, like, vision boarding or, like, manifestation, all of that stuff, but what do you see for your future? Like, what would you love to see in your future? What are your aspirations and jobs you want? Or
I do have a vision board, actually. I do like that. I'm not sure how to really do it.
I don't think anyone knows. They're just like, I'll just stick a few pictures.
That's it.
I think comes into fruition.
That's it. I've just got a frame in my room just full of, like, cutouts, but I actually don't know.
Cut and sticking.
That's it. I should probably readdress them now. But anyway, yeah, it just looks pretty. So I do have one. I think for the future, I think it's like, you kind of don't know where you're going to end up, right? And I'm kind of okay with that. But I do think that I know that this is what I'm going to do forever. And I also know that I'm in the right arena. I don't know I don't know if I ever want to, like, move abroad for a year. That's kind of in my mind. For
That'd
work, that would be amazing.
Do you know where, or do you just, like, somewhere that's not the UK and London?
No, I think I'd love to try America for a year, or Australia really appeals to me as well. So I
feel
think
like they're a lot more laid back in Australia. That's just the vibe.
Oh, they're so cool.
I get. Yeah, it's just that they're like, yeah, you can just, like, walk around in, like, a bikini and, I was about to say thongs, but obviously that's flip-flops. So yeah,
flip-flops. Like, yeah, flip-flops. Yes, I think that would be really cool. And I think that kind of seeing my work in those kind of places would be something that I'd like to kind of, like, explore and see.
Yeah, that would be epic.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And the last question I have for you, which is a big question. I don't know if you've ever been asked this before, but it's a pretty common one, but I love it. What is the one piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
I think I would say, as you go through your life, people are going to tell you that you work too much. People are going to tell you that you need to switch off. And they're also going to tell you that you need to take a break, and that, you know, you're going to burn out and all of these things. But actually follow your gut, because what you're doing right now is actually what makes you happier than following what society tells us you should be doing. Society tells you should be doing a 5-day week and have a 2-day weekend. But, like, if that doesn't feel right for you, then you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
And I think I tell my younger self that, because I think when I was kind of a lot younger, I was a lot more intuitive. I just followed my gut. And that's
like
just
fearlessness.
Yeah, I just did it. And then everyone kind of said to me, you know, you're doing too much, or, you know, you're going to burn out. And yeah, don't get me wrong, there would be once or twice that I burned out.
Yeah.
But actually, for me and for what actually makes me happier, I was just so much happier in that space. I forced myself to slow down because I thought that's what I should do. And I was, like, the most miserable I'd ever been.
Wow.
And so
you were doing something that didn't feel...
It just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, what I do for a living and how I live my life is what makes me excited. It's what gets me up in the morning. And when I took that away from myself, and then I didn't.
It's almost like, what am I living for now? Like, it's like, I think I'm so glad you brought this up, because there is, you know, what is it, like anti-hustle, like cancel hustle. And I do think that, you know, other things are important aside from work. But when this is a thing that I struggle with too, with like friends, and like my boyfriend works a 9 to 5 and a lot of my family do 9 to 5s, is that they don't understand that you absolutely love what you do, and you like would do it all the time if you could, and you do when you can, and they're just like, why are you working all the time? Like you said, like you need to rest, you need to take a break, and you're like, I actually don't, because what I do lights me up so much that it doesn't drain my energy. Like if anything, it gives me more energy. Like I find that, and there is a fine line, sometimes you do overwork, and like you said, you have to take a break. But for me, it's been like, I'm the exact same as you. When I'm like taking time off, I'm just like, I get bored so easily. I'm like, a bit bored. And I'm like, and then the ideas start floating around in my head. And I'm like, because that's one thing I would say, one caveat, space is really important. Like space in your mind, even decluttering your physical space to give space for your creativity to flow. Like that's why I love like baths and walks and runs, to like get the creative juices flowing. But yeah, 100%, like when you love what you do, then it gives you more energy. If anything, it doesn't even drain you like perhaps a 9 to 5 would for, you know, your friends or family, or it's a different
and I just found myself like I was just like at mini golf because I thought I should be at mini golf, and was just about like, I feel more anxious than if I was just at home working on whatever I was working on, or, you know, especially kind of like at the beginning. I think it's different now. I think once you kind of get your foot in the door and things like that, then you do have a little bit more space to kind of relax just a little bit. But I was a bit like you mentioned baths there. That is the worst thing I could do. Yeah, like if people go, oh, do you want to relax? Just like lie in a bath. That does not make me relax. Yeah.
That's so. See, I used to really struggle to relax, and I literally had to like force myself, because I was like so drained, and like I needed to find a bit of balance. But yeah, I do think it's important to. It's a hard one. It's like, because like human design, everyone is so different. So like when people give you advice, it might work for them, but it might not work for you. So I'm not going to sit here and say like you should have baths and you should relax more. But I do think for everyone as a whole, like having that space to think, to reflect, to brainstorm is really important as well. So you're not just operating on autopilot.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I also think as well, see, as humans, we actually know when to take a break. We actually do. We just don't listen.
It's true. We don't listen to our bodies.
Yeah, and some people are going to need more breaks than others, and that's just life.
Yeah.
But I think that if you actually just listen to your gut, you're going to know. You don't need to follow like some sort of kind of set pattern. Like I force myself to like watch telly. Now I'm addicted, and it's just like, why have I done that? Like I forced myself.
I know.
To do
reality TV, you're just like, you get sucked in. And
that's it. I forced myself. I was like, everyone tells me I should do this because I need to relax, and here I am. And I was like, I was never bothered before. So I do think that
interesting.
You do know. I think you do know.
Yeah. Trust your gut, 100%. And I just want to sneak in another question because I meant to ask it earlier, but I know obviously you said you transitioned from dancing to presenting. Like, what was your first ever job, and how did you do that? Was it a case of sending out demos, show reels, being on your Instagram, like showing up on your Instagram?
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of long, it's a longer process than kind of I even realised. So I was in my second year, I'd done like a presenting course, and the presenting course was, you know, it was fine. It wasn't groundbreaking, but it was fine. But what it did do is it did teach me like, oh, I want to do this. This is where I belong, and it just came so easy to me in a lot of ways. I mean, I don't want to see the tapes, so if anyone's got them, don't dig them up, because I do not want to see that. But I do think
memories are to be left in the past.
Yeah, as a general rule, I thought, oh, actually, this feels right. So because of that, I kind of knew, and that was when I was back at college. That was a long time ago. So that wasn't like 5 years ago. It was a bit longer than that. But then when I graduated, I kind of was like, you know, I'm graduating into this world. I'd, you know, done 3 years at like a really good like college down here. And I thought, actually, let me go and dance. So I did that for a few years. And then I was on one contract where I was going like around the world, which was amazing. I was halfway through it and I was like, okay, I'm ready. I was kind of like, I'm ready to be a presenter now. So I had made like a little show reel just with a friend running around London.
I love that.
And I'd put it on YouTube, and then an ex-CBBC producer, was starting a new agency, and he contacted me and just said like, you know, is it something you'd be interested in? I said, well, I'm currently on this contract, but like when I come back, I'm going to do it. So I signed with him when I came back.
Amazing.
And from there, I just started like creating stuff. I had a little YouTube series. And then I was like, it was tough, and I quit the industry and went and got a job as what was my actual title? I worked in a dessert company.
Just seeing you here now.
Yeah,
in London.
In London, yeah.
Okay.
One of my best friends, his sister, you know, works in this dessert company, which is, their desserts are like top notch.
Cream of the crop.
Cream of the crop.
Pardon the pun.
Yeah, it was a really good job. And I went in, and I think at first I was just kind of like a dog's body, and just, if that's even like an expression anymore, just doing everything. Anything that needed done, I was there.
Yeah.
Then I kind of graduated into like running the events and stuff, and that was a space I knew because I'd done lots of kind of promotion and promo and stuff like that when I was a dancer. So I kind of knew
you were used to that.
Yeah, I was used to it. So I was in the event space, and then it was coming to the end of my probation. It was like 3 months, and they were like, okay, you're going to sign like a full-time contract now. And I was like, oh, let me think about it. So before I signed it, then had come up a job on Twitter, and it was for like a kids presenter. It was like this new Netflix for kids. It was kind of Blue Peter-esque. It was like a challenge show. And we would go out and we'd do activities like Tough Mudder and rugby, and like really throwing yourself in. And
that sounds fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. And I auditioned for that. I just sent a tape off from my YouTube stuff that I had from before. So I think, although I was like, I'm leaving the industry, I hadn't really left it because I was still looking. So I did that, and then I had the audition, and I went in, and I got that job. So I then didn't sign the contract for the dessert company. So that was my very first job.
Wow.
And it was the best job that I could. I still love it to this day.
That does sound really fun.
It was amazing. And we went like zorbing, and I like pushed like myself out of my comfort zone, but I did it on camera, and I absolutely loved it. And I met some amazing people. I got to work with some really cool presenters that are doing amazing stuff now.
That's amazing.
In fact, one of the guy that I was doing it with is now a presenter on CBBC. So we both ended up in kids, which was quite nice.
That is nice. Do you find that people kind of stick with kid stuff for a little while and then they move on? Is that something you want to do? Like, you want to stick with the kid stuff for a while? Or?
But I'm at Fun Kids Radio at the minute, which I love, and it was like just a natural space for me because I had come from the kids telly. And it's a really cool station, and it's run really well, and I enjoy it. But I don't really see myself now as like a kids presenter. I feel like I've kind of evolved, and I will like continue to evolve. But I do think that it's a space I know and that I can do. So you know, if an opportunity comes up, I will 100%
go for it.
Say yes. But I do think that now, I think it's important that people can see that I can do a lot more. Because although I was in the kids space, I wasn't in the really young kids. You know, I wasn't in the 0 to 5 category where the presenting style is very different.
Yes.
When you kind of go into that area of kids, like, you have to present different than you would to an adult. Yeah. Whereas when you're kind of in the kids that I was in, it's like,
there's not many differences.
There's not much. You're just a bit more playful. Yeah. And that's really it. But you speak the same. You don't, you know, there's personality traits that are there. There's exact same. So it's not like, you kind of ham up, I guess, slightly. But not really.
Yeah, the foundations are the same. Yeah. Rather than like goo goo gaga.
Yeah, no, and
little babies.
Yeah, and I always say this, like, hats off to anyone that does like the 0 to 6, because it's not an easy gig.
Oh my gosh, I can imagine it's really challenging.
Yeah,
really challenging niche.
How do they get the energy? I want to know.
Oh my god, yeah, they must sleep for like 12 hours.
Yeah.
I feel like you can do that if you had kids yourself as well. Imagine you just be like, you'd end up talking like a 3-year-old.
Yeah, they're brilliant. Like, honestly, they're brilliant. And I know some presenters in that space, and I'm like, fair play, because I honestly couldn't be singing and dancing and whatnot.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, this has been it. This has been an amazing interview, and I hope everyone listening / watching has enjoyed. How can people find you, contact you, etc.?
Etc. I am Robyn Richford on everything, pretty much. So it's ROBYN, and then Rich, and then Ford like the car.
Perfect. And I will link everything in the show notes. I hope that you've all enjoyed this episode and got lots of juicy nuggets. Like I said, maybe you don't even want to be a presenter, but it's transferable, right? Like I'm sure you would have got some amazing advice from this episode. So look forward to seeing you, or not seeing you, you seeing me or hearing me. I'm like, I can't see you. That would be great. But yeah, I look forward to the next episode.